Welcome to our presentation of Turkey. Today we will be going over the political, economic, social, technological, environmental, and legal indicators of Turkey in hopes to better prepare you to do business here. We will also follow with a brief SWOT analysis. As you can see from this map, Turkey is bordered by several Middle Eastern countries to the east and Europe to the west. It also has expansive coastlines on both the Black Sea and the Mediterranean Sea. Access to these seas provides numerous opportunities for trade. Turkey was founded in 1923. The current image you are viewing is the Turkish flag. Its capital city, Ankara, is located slightly northwest of the country's center. The people of Turkey are referred to as Turks. Turkey's population is almost 76 million and growing. This population is spread over its 783,000 square kilometers. The Turks enjoy a temperate climate that remains mild year-round. In comparison to the U.S., Turkey's population is much smaller. However, with a population growth rate of 1.2%, it is growing at a much faster rate than the U.S.'s 0.7% growth rate. Considering that Turkey is only slightly larger than the state of Texas, its population density has already outpaced that of the U.S. Turkey's higher birth rate and lower death rate have contributed to its higher growth rate than the U.S. Next, we will look at the political climate of Turkey.
The Republic of Turkey was created in 1923 as the successor state to the Ottoman Empire. Unlike other countries with large Muslim populations, Turkey is strongly secular in its political structure, being firmly guided by its constitution, which was ratified in 1982. Turkey is considered to be a parliamentary representative democratic republic with three branches of government. In the executive, the head of state is President Recep Erdogan. His election in 2014 by direct voting was the first of its kind in the history of Turkey. While the role of president has been largely ceremonial, recent unrest has led to increased emergency powers. Constitutionally, government executive power rests mostly with the Prime Minister, Binali Yildirim, and with the 27-member Council of Ministers, who oversee much of Turkey's government. Of note, current President Recep Erdogan was actually Prime Minister from 2003 to 2014 prior to his election as president, and under his watch, much of the recent shift toward authoritarianism has occurred. The legislative branch, the Grand National Assembly of Turkey, is a 550-seat unicameral body elected to 5-year terms. 4 political parties currently hold seats, with the Justice and Development Party holding the majority. The judiciary is independent of the other branches. While Turkey had in previous decades demonstrated progress towards democracy, freedom, and stability as it attempted to gain membership in the European Union, recent years have demonstrated disturbing trends towards oppression and unrest. Indices demonstrate worsening of political instability and violence, which continues to diverge from U.S. indices. Increasing corruption is also apparent. Note the downturn after 2013 compared to the United States. Similarly, the rule of law holds very little sway in Turkey. Lastly, personal freedoms have taken a very significant downturn, especially since 2013. Specifically, Freedom House designates Turkey as partly free, with a freedom rating of 4.5 in 2016, down from 3.5 the previous year, and identifies Turkey as having the second worst loss of freedom worldwide over the entire previous decade. This trend culminated in the failed military coup d'etat on July 15, 2016, brought on ostensibly by erosions in Turkish freedoms. More than 300 were killed and many government buildings were damaged in the fighting. The Erdogan government responded harshly with emergency rule and a systematic purge of government, judiciary, and press, with more than 40,000 arrested and more than 100,000 civil servants and judges removed from office. Overall, the political environment of Turkey suggests a significant rise in authoritarianism and a rapid decay of freedoms, which represent risks for foreign direct investment.
Now we will look at factors that influence the Turkish economy. Turkey has a mostly free market economy, which means that supply and demand factors influence production. The government of Turkey plays little role in regulating the economy. In recent years, Turkey's economy has seen a boom in its industry and service sectors. However, traditional agriculture still plays a vital role and is responsible for employing a significant amount of the working population. Although the GDP per capita in Turkey is not as high as in the U.S., when purchasing power parity is factored in, it increases significantly. This shows that there is potential in the Turkish market. This table shows the changes that Turkey's economy has witnessed over the last 15 years. Overall, GDP per capita has increased, and unemployment is currently on the decline since its peak in 2009. According to the Economic Freedom Index, Turkey has been mostly on par with the world average levels of economic freedom. Although Turkey's economy is currently less free than that of the U.S., Turkey has witnessed a net gain in freedom, while the U.S. has had a slight decline over time. This points towards a promising future in Turkey for those looking to do business. Overall, Turkey has fairly high human development. The one area where the country has room for significant improvement is in the mean years of schooling. A more knowledgeable and skilled workforce is necessary for a growing economy. Next, we will look at the foreign direct investment inflows and outflows as a percentage of GDP of Turkey. Over time, the foreign direct inflows of Turkey have been similar to those of the U.S. Due to having a larger economy, the U.S. continues to have more FDI outflows, but Turkey has been increasing its outflows at a higher rate in recent years. Here we can see the top export and import partners of Turkey. The country's primary exports are apparel, foodstuffs, textiles, and metal manufacturers. Its imports are machinery, chemicals, semi-finished goods, and fuel. Lastly, we will look at factors related to Turkey's currency, the Turkish lira. The exchange rate in Turkey has been increasing slightly in recent years. Although it is not yet as high as the Chinese exchange rate, the two are on path to converge due to the decline of Chinese currency. Turkey has had a more volatile inflation rate over time, but it has leveled out and is not much higher than the US's at this point.
In review of the social cultural aspects of Turkey, we will start with religion. 98% of the population in Turkey identifies themselves as Muslim. There are some Catholic and Jewish religions which have been present for hundreds of years. However, this population is very small. One key factor to note in religion: an important constitutional amendment in 1924 identified Turkey as a secular state, meaning they don't identify with a religion. It's important to note because despite this amendment, there's still a strong presence of religious teachings in their schools. Their primary language is Turkish. When we look at an approach or Hofstede's cultural dimensions, we will compare Turkey to the United States and these 6 dimensions of Hofstede's cultural dimensions. The first one that we will look at is power distance. They rate at a 66 compared to a 40 in the United States. What does this mean? What do we look at? How is power distributed? And basically in this country, there's a higher inequality of power distribution, and this has been accepted. And in the uncertainty and avoidance aspect of this model, we look at how do people feel in unknown situations. They rate at an 85 compared to a 46 in the United States, which means that they're going to be more resistant or reluctant to change because of its uncertainty. So this is a risk for a business going into this country. The final aspect of the social cultural review is education as we look at the potential workforce here. According to OECD's 2015 PISA scores, Turkey scored at a 462, lower than the United States and the average PISA score. In the level of education, when it comes to the age group of 25 years to 64 years of age, 63% of this population is below a secondary level of education. And finally, when we look at math, reading, and science, Turkey scores significantly lower than the United States in all of these aspects.
Let's take a look at technology. First is the percent of GDP spent on R&D. We can see that Turkey rose at the same rate as the European Union. By 2023, Turkey wants to devote at least 3% of its GDP to R&D activities, which is more than anyone in the world currently. They also want to have 300,000 full-time researchers. If we look at scientific and technical journal articles, we can see that they remained very stagnant while the United States grew substantially. If you look at just Turkey, many of the research and articles written in the late 90s and early 2000s can be contributed to the field of endocrine surgery. For patent applications, we can see that Turkey had very little up until the 2000. In 2014, it was the 4th largest increase in registration activity with 12% increase, and the 5th most total designs with almost 48,000. Now let's move on to environment. Energy demand is expected to increase around 6% every year until 2023. The government's made huge strides, creating more of a competitive energy market. This has increased the share of private entities in the electricity generation sector from 32% in 2002 to 75% in 2015. They also are about ready to implement an energy stock exchange to generate more growth. If we look at the EPI scores for 2016, we'll see that Turkey is tremendously lower than any of the EU countries. If we look at the environmental factors, we see that biodiversity and habitat are very low due to rapid deforestation. This indicator fell by 23% over the past decade. Turkey's Ministry of Forestry and Water Affairs said that this was false and misleading, citing their endangered species health. Zaman, Turkey's most widely circulated newspaper, blamed some of the country's environmental struggles on deliberate actions to undermine the Wetlands Protection Ordinance, the only legal obstacle to restrict further habitat destruction. Many wetland species are pushed to the brink of extinction, which in part explains Turkey's biodiversity and habitat low ranking in the 2016 EPI, 177 out of 180.
Turkey's judicial system was based on the Turkish Civil Code, which was enacted in 1926 after the demise of the Ottoman Empire ended Sharia law. The Turkish judicial system is made up of 3 separate systems: judicial courts, which include both civil and criminal courts, administrative courts, which address family and financial disputes, and military courts. While the Turkish constitution guarantees many basic rights and freedoms, as well as judicial independence, the recent political upheaval and government response paint a different picture. Despite nominal claims, judicial independence in Turkey suffers and has shown recent declines in many international indices of justice and freedom. Compared to the United States, there has been a clear decline in judicial independence during the last decade. And the direct attack on judicial independence has drawn considerable media attention. Further, with the recent mass arrests and replacement of nearly 3,000 judges in the aftermath of the failed July 2016 military coup, judicial independence in Turkey appears at an all-time low. Similar to the loss of many other freedoms, property rights in Turkey are also on the decline. Note the severe downturn compared to the United States since 2013. Recent seizures of assets throughout the country are a significant concern to both foreign and domestic investors. Finally, intellectual property protections in Turkey are quite low compared to the United States and, despite slight improvements since 2011, remain a significant concern to intellectual property owners.
Last but not least, we have the SWOT analysis. This breaks down the common question: should we trade? Let's get into strengths. Steady population increase of working-age citizens. President Erdogan has a strong stance towards enemies in the country, showing potential for the government support that would help the country financially. The judicial branch has a dedicated panel of judges who only uphold the law. Turkey is a member of World Trade Organization and has aligned their standards of trade with the EU. Economic growth has increased threefold. Weaknesses are the components that scare off investors, so let's evaluate those. It has been shown that the law enforcement is lacking and has a poor track record for corruption and prosecuting the guilty. They have a very small rapport with the U.S. Political stability in the government has seen better days, but recently it has declined, showing that staying in the country for business has an even higher unknown factor. Yes, the GDP per capita has risen in the past couple of years, but is still lower than the U.S., which indicates a small, if not cheap, market to sell to. Opportunities are the key to knowing how big of a market is available for the taking. The overall freedom rating is not the best, but it shows progress and potential for citizens to accept new products and trade. President Erdogan represents the AK political party, which focuses on democratization rather than religion for government. They have multiple investment packages with incentives from tax breaks to subsidiaries. One other upside of traveling out so far in the Middle East is that Turkey is considered a commercial hub for neighboring countries. Last, but certainly not least, we talk about the threats. Civil society and media are repressed. Physical harm. Radical Islamic terrorist groups are constantly threatening and attacking the country. Syrian civil war is within close proximity. Because of the country still trying to gain ground in their own home market, they tend to favor local production. All of these together suggest an answer to our main question. All the strengths show us that there's a strong indication that Turkey would be a profitable venture. Unfortunately, the weaknesses show that a venture in Turkey would be difficult. Every country and their economy present doubts to foreign traders, so Turkey is no different, and the effort should be made to tread lightly and trade with them. Opportunities are definitely presenting themselves in Turkey, and this indicates a green light for trade. Unfortunately, the threats here are mostly physical. Safety precautions should be well researched before fully entering the country with products and services that could be destroyed. We hope you enjoyed our presentation on Turkey and think that it should help you in deciding whether or not to trade with this beautiful and delicate country. Thank you.